in their daily lives. Not far from us here, the District 6 is a living reminder of the effects of the Group Areas Act. President Nelson Mandela later characterized our country's situation with unmatched clarity when he described us as a country that was a pariah amongst nations, a detestable example of what is impermissible in the ordering of human relations and homeland of a crime against humanity. Honorable members, this week also carries the triumphant weight of history. On the 25th of May 1994, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 919, terminating the arms embargo and ending the remaining sanctions against South Africa. This marked the end of South Africa's isolation following the 1994 democratic elections. It also marked our democratic nation's formal admission to the family of nations. It is also fitting that yesterday, the 25th of May, we marked Africa Day.
Please be seated.
Indeed, honorable members, as we table this budget of 7,227,000,000 rands for 2026-2027,
Good afternoon, honorable members.
we do so with full awareness of this history.
We will once again
It is a history of pain.
congratulate the Orlando Pirates for
and the history of victory
winning
that gave our democracy a great
league.
responsibility to conduct foreign policy anchored in Ubuntu,
Amapagania,
international law, dialogue,
and also not
multilateralism, and the
leaving
needs
Sundowns
of our country and of our continent.
for
In the
taking
32
the
years of our
Africa
democratic dispensation,
champions.
successive democratically elected governments
Yes,
have been at the center of concretizing the achievements of our equality through
I will
legislative
now
and other measures
ask
designed
the
to
secretary to
protect
read the
or
order.
advance persons or categories of persons
Debate
disadvantaged by
on vote
unfair
number 6,
discrimination.
international relations
We
and
table this
cooperation.
budget at a time when
Cooperation Bill.
international cooperation
Thank
is
you.
under sustained
I will now
pressure
recognize the
from
Honorable
unilateralism,
Minister of International
economic
Relations and
cohesion,
Cooperation.
wars of aggression, deals of extraction, and winner-takes-it-all approach to global relations. South Africa cannot afford to shed the responsibility that comes with its history. Our freedom is a product of international solidarity. South Africa must, in this moment, thank you, House Chairperson, towards a better Africa of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Suprema. Africa is the centerpiece of all honorable members. Our first task is to advance the interest. I have the honor to present the African continent. Budget Vote 6. This task begins the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, integrated on a economically resilient Africa. And indeed, our diplomacy across the continent promotes bilateral relations, deepens regional cooperation, and aligns collective efforts around shared development in an electoral system reserved exclusively. As chair of the AU Ministerial Committee, the National Party won the follow-up majority of implementation of Agenda 2063. In this day, South Africa has a responsibility to support the legislative machinery of acceleration with greater agency, stronger institutions, and the shared ownership of Africa's development agenda. Our nomination to the Committee of Heads of State and Government on the implementation of the AfCFTA also reflects confidence in South Africa's commitment to continental economic integration. The AfCFTA must become a practical instrument for expanding intra-Africa trade, building regional value chains, advancing industrialization, and creating jobs. The AfCFTA has the potential for a common market of $3.4 trillion and a pathway to diversification, reduced dependency on external markets, and greater resilience of our economies. Yet intra-Africa trade remains too low, at just 16% for the continent and 21% for the SADC region. This is far below Europe at 68% and Asia at 59%. Africa's trade is also still heavily concentrated outside the continent. Over 50% of the continent's imports and exports are tied to just 5 economies, all outside Africa. This is the source of our vulnerability to external shocks. It is also why regional integration must move from aspiration to implementation. Honorable members, I have recently hosted the SADC Ministers of Foreign Affairs retreat in Skukuza, in the Kruger National Park, where ministers reflected on the geopolitical developments affecting our region. The ministers agreed that SADC must be better prepared to respond to external shocks, whether they arise from conflict, climate disasters, food and fuel price volatility, public health emergencies, or the decisions of powerful actors far beyond our borders. Our region is home to 30% of the world's proven critical mineral reserves. We are also home to approximately 50% of the world's cobalt reserves, 20% of the world's graphite reserves, and 10% of the world's copper reserves. These resources, if harnessed properly, can propel our region structural transformation. Countries in our region, including South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and Tanzania, are taking bold policy steps to ensure that mineral endowments support development. In our country, it has come through the critical mineral strategy. When South Africa assumes the full chairship of SADC in August 2026, our priorities will include deepening political cohesion, consolidating the SADC free trade area, reducing non-tariff barriers, and building regional value chains in agro-processing, critical minerals, beneficiations, pharmaceuticals, and other strategic sectors. Honorable members, an integrated Africa cannot be built on conflict and instability. That is why our continental task also extends to peace and security. South Africa serves on the AU Peace Security Council at a time when the parts of the continent continue to face armed conflict, unconstitutional changes of government, terrorism, violent extremism, and transnational organized crime. In the Great Lakes region, we continue to support efforts towards a political solution to conflict in the Eastern DRC. In South Sudan, we continue to support dialogue, institutional reform, and the full implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. South Africa also maintained its principles of regional solidarity and a firm belief that Africa must shape its own future. We are anti-war and advocates for peace. Our second task is to champion the reform of global governance and defend international cooperation. The world is changing, but many of its institutions still reflect old patterns of power. Developing countries continue to face unsustainable debt, unequal access to development finance, and growing pressures to align with powerful geopolitical blocs. South Africa's responsibility is to advance a fairer and more representative global order. This means continuing to call for reform of the United Nations, especially the Security Council, so that it can respond more effectively to contemporary global challenges. South Africa's G20 presidency under the theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability gave expression to this responsibility. Among the important outcomes of our presidency were two major reports: the G20 Africa Expert Panel report on growth, debt, development, and the report on the G20 Extraordinary Committee of Independent Experts on Global Inequality. We continue to work with partners including AU, Brazil, Norway, and Spain towards establishing the International Panel on Inequality, for which endorsement by the UN General Assembly later this year is being sought. In addition, the AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government has adopted decision profiling the key deliverables of the Johannesburg Summit, including the establishment of G20 Continental Coordination Mechanism to strengthen coherence amongst AU, UN, and G20 processes. Through BRICS, South Africa will continue to advance reform of global governance, institutions, and support the development of the new BRICS Economic Partnership Strategy. The expansion of BRICS to 11 members marks a significant milestone in the growing voice of the Global South in international affairs. It must also defend the rules that protect all nations, large and small. We have formed the Hague Group to defend the credibility of international law, hold states accountable for breaches, and protect the integrity of the international legal order. It was established to rally against complicity and impunity and support the collective enforcement of international law through concrete measures, including halting arms transfers, blocking weapons shipments, suspending procurements from Israel firms, seizing energy exports, and pursuing accountability through national and international courts. As a country that voluntarily dismantled its nuclear weapons program, we continue to advocate for the total elimination of nuclear weapons, and we will preside over the first review conference of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons later this year. Our third task is to use foreign policy as a lever to improve conditions at home. Foreign policy must ultimately speak to the lives of our people. Our foreign policy must support inclusive economic growth, poverty eradication, sustainable development, peace, and security. Our economic diplomacy is yielding results. As we speak today, 45% of our processed goods are now traded within the continent, including agriculture. In 2025, South Africa's agricultural exports reached a record of $15.1 billion. In the first quarter of 2026, farm exports reached $3.7 billion, an increase of 11% year on year. This creates jobs at home in the processing plants and factories, including the logistic networks. These exports reach markets across Africa, the European Union, and Asia. They show how foreign policy can support jobs, production, and economic opportunities at home. On migration, this means managing migration lawfully in a coordinated manner and based on evidence, data, and statistics. The law enforcement authorities must enforce the law with regards to irregular migration and not private citizens. The police, border management, and labor inspectors have to play their role. It means the protection of the fundamental rights of every person, secure borders, and an immigration system that is insulated from corruption. In line with President Ramaphosa's commitment as the pandemic preparedness champion of the African Union, South Africa will contribute $5 million to the Africa CDC to help with the fight against Ebola. As honorable members are aware of the outbreak in most parts of West Africa and some parts of East and in the DRC. Let me conclude by returning once more to President Mandela, who reminded us that because our nation arrived late at the Festival of Liberty, it must value freedom like the apples of its eye. This budget enables South Africa to discharge its responsibilities and obligations on the continent and beyond. And let me take this opportunity to thank the DG and all staff of the department for their continued support in our work. The Portfolio Committee, as led by the chairperson, Honorable Maoma Pilu, and all members of the Portfolio Committee and all the alternates. I also want to take this opportunity to also thank my wife, who's also here today, who support my work across the globe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I thought you would also congratulate Honorable Minister. I thought you would also congratulate Mapagania, but I can see that I'm sure you are that type of number 3 on the league. Yeah, I can see it's that gang of number 3. I will now recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Maoma Pilu.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the day, Honorable Josie Majosi. I also want to greet the Honorable Minister Lamola and your collective of the 2 deputy ministers, the DG and your collective of bureaucrats and revocrats in DIRCO, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, and those who are here today. Honorable members, a budget is an instrument of revolution. So we in the African National Congress understand that a budget, it is this instrument that we must use to make sure that ultimately we achieve the long-term strategic goal of building a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and a prosperous society. So this budget, Minister, at your disposal, 7.2 billion. Among other things, it gives you and the collective in the department an opportunity to use it as an instrument to deepen and achieve multilateralism, to make sure that we build global solidarity, to ensure that we build South-to-South relations, to continue to pursue our resolve to ensure that there's deepening of transformation of global institutions of governance, which is the United Nations Security Council and all its other ancillary bodies. It gives us an opportunity to continue to engage with our comrades and progressive forces all over the world, particularly in the African continent, so that we can achieve the strategic objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. It gives us an opportunity to say to the African Union that your theme of reparations for Africa is a correct theme, and its manifestation must continue to reflect in the impact we are making by implementing the strategic objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. It also gives us an opportunity to continue to engage our former colonizers. In our instance, it will be the United Kingdom, to say to them that reparations in the context of South Africa must, among other things, mean that resources from Europe, particularly in the UK, must continue to flow through investments, not only in South Africa, but also in the entirety of the African continent. It gives you and the department, Minister, the opportunity to continue to improve the audit outcomes, not only for the Auditor General to be happy on the extent to which we are meeting the requirements the Auditor General lays down from one financial year to another, but for the outcomes of the audit to be a practical, to have a practical meaning for our people on the ground, on how these investments that we get through economic relations we pursue through DIRCO impact on their lives, to make sure that poverty, inequality, and unemployment becomes something that future generations will not inherit from current generation. That is why in the ANC we say a budget is an instrument of revolution. And we know that in the course of us pursuing this revolution, there will be forces of retrogression. There will be forces of digression. There will be forces that seek to take us back to where we were in the apartheid South Africa, through sophisticated methods of objecting to every transformation that we seek to bring to our nation. To that we say to DIRCO, remain relentless, remain focused on the strategic objective. We know that these resources at our disposal gives you, on behalf of the Republic of South Africa, an opportunity to go all over the world to pursue the objective of building a better Africa and a better world. A better world in which these wars which are raging will be something of the past in the near future, as future generations will be inheriting from us the sweat of the revolution that we're involved in. As the portfolio committee, honorable members, we've got some proposals that we want to make to the department. Proposal number 1. We are suggesting that the immovable assets of South Africa located in the missions all over the world, which are there to pursue our foothold as South Africa. There must be discussions between DIRCO, Finance, and the PIC and Public Works to look at better, more economic and commercially making sense approaching as far as the usage of those immovable assets are concerned. Proposal number 2. We are suggesting that foreign direct investments coming into the country have to be contextualized in both quantitative and qualitative terms, which therefore means that as we decode the implications of these investments, we must check as to how they are helping us to reduce poverty, to deal with inequality, and to deal with unemployment, and to make sure that we reduce the migration patterns of people from the rural areas to the center, therefore moving from periphery to the center. Proposal number 3. We are suggesting, Honorable Minister, that we must engage BRICS Plus, so that BRICS Plus must engage on matters that have ensued between Iran, Israel, and the United States of America, because Iran is a member of the BRICS Plus. So that engagements that are taking place on this geopolitics that are occurring, our engagements as proponents of multilateralism are in the context of the BRICS Plus as South Africa. We are also proposing that there must be ongoing discussions between ourselves and DTIC on how the economy can be improved by bringing more investments to South Africa. Grace Lee Box, honorable member, says, revolution is not for the lily-livered, it's not for those who are seeking praising at all material times. Thank
you very much. I will now recognize honorable member.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, is it parliamentary? Because at first, Ubaba Umkhonto changed the word immediately into later. And now we are misleading our people with unity means something else. Is it parliamentary that the GNU this side is clapping hands, but the GNU that side is not clapping hands?
Honorable member, that's not a point of order. Can we please proceed? Your point is not sustained. I will now recognize Honorable Douglas.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, fellow South Africans. I greet you all in the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and in the language of the First Nation Aboriginal people of this land, the Khoisan San, Kaites. Chairperson, as we celebrate Africa Day, we need to understand the moment we are in globally. South Africa stands today at the center of the greatest geopolitical and economic shifts of our generation. We are witnessing the collapse of one world order and the violent birth of another. The age of uncontested Western unipolar dominance is weakening and BRICS is expanding. The global south is rising. Alternative pay systems are emerging. The race for critical minerals, AI supremacy, energy security, shipping corridors, and technological control has begun. And nations that fail to adapt to this new reality will become economic colonies in the 21st century. Modern warfare is no longer fought only with tanks and missiles and drones. Wars are now fought through sanctions, trade routes, cyber warfare, AI systems, food supply chains, financial systems, media narratives, and technological dependency. And South Africa is now directly caught in those global battles. We have seen growing tensions with the United States, with our ambassador kicked out, our president summoned and falsely accused in the Oval Office of white genocide. We have seen threats around AGOA based upon widely debunked white genocide and Afrikaner refugee program, which is belachelijk, soos hulle sê. We have seen tariff wars escalating globally. We have seen attempts to succeed Western Cape from South Africa as a sovereign state. We have seen the weaponization of sanctions and international financial systems. We have seen South Africa dragged into the center of the geopolitical storms following the ICJ genocide case against Israel. And yet, despite all of this, Budget Vote 6 still behaves as it's a normal world. It is not a normal world. DIRCO still operates with a diplomatic philosophy designed for 1994, while the world has moved into 2026. The department still measures success through meetings held, forums attended, reports compiled, and protocol ceremonies. But our people do not eat meetings. Young people do not find jobs through diplomatic photo opportunities. Township businesses do not enter export markets through conferences. South Africa's expanded unemployment rate now exceeds 41%. Youth unemployment remains above 45%. More than 18 million South Africans survive through social grants, which is not enough. And yet this budget vote gives DIRCO roughly a 2% increase, an increase already swallowed by inflation and currency volatility. At this very precise moment, global geopolitical competition is intensifying. South Africa is shrinking diplomatic capacity because of austerity budgets, and this is from the GNU. That contradiction is dangerous, Chairperson. DIRCO cannot simply remain a protocol department. Every South African embassy abroad must become an economic command center for national development. Besides normal embassy and consular services, every ambassador must become an economic field marshal for investment attraction, technology transfer, industrial partnerships, skills development, market access, and tourism expansion. We need to stop asking how many meetings were held and saying how many jobs were created, how many export contracts were signed, how many township businesses entered global markets, how many industrial partnerships were secured for Black business, how much investment actually reached the poor communities. That is the true measure of diplomacy and of DIRCO's success. South Africa is not a poor country. We are poorly structured in our economy, sitting on immense strategic wealth. Like the minister said, we control over 70% of the world's platinum reserves. And we sit on the most important maritime trade routes on earth through the Cape Sea route. We possess massive untapped oil and gas potential. And yet, Mr. Chair, despite this wealth, millions of people still live in abject poverty, live in shacks for 30 years like animals, without employment and with complete hopelessness, because the mandate of DIRCO hasn't translated into a better life for all. Mr. Chair, because South Africa still operates inside a colonial economic structure where raw material wealth leaves our shores while poverty remains behind. For centuries, Africa exported all our stuff, gold, diamonds, cobalt, and we exported everything and we imported finished products. And this meant that there is no jobs for our people, there's just poverty for our people. And this particular department, when I went to all the events at the embassies in China and in Europe, everywhere, all I saw was white monopoly capital. All I saw was the JSC people standing there and they getting the businesses, they getting the opportunities, but you don't see Black young people there. You don't see Black women there. You don't see Black disabled people there. You don't see colored businesses there. You don't see Khoisan businesses there. You only see the same system that has been running this country for the last 30 years, which is the same extractive model that was still in place from apartheid right up until now. Mr. Chair, while China builds entire future cities and industrial corridors for 1.4 billion and India does the same, South Africa debates austerity, and we only have 65 million people, while our of vacancies remain frozen and our municipalities fail. And we have no support from our partners who are willing to give us support in the BRICS environment. We can get funding from China, we can get funding from the New Development Bank, but we refuse to do that. We refuse to take loans from the IMF with conditionalities that means we've got to cut instead of grow. And what we need to do is grow the economy, and we need to use the Department of International Relations and Cooperation to do that. We should not be managing decline. We should be building an African economic powerhouse. A 2% increase will not fix the ITC problems in DIRCO. It will not help solve the problem of embassies which are dilapidated or our consular services weakened by frozen vacancies. And there's no budget to take delegations of black businesses, youth entrepreneurs, and women to our foreign missions and to all these great, amazing exhibitions and things that can actually take their products and sell it in those places. You don't see that happening. Why hasn't it happened for 30 years? The MK party supports Pan-Africanism, African industrialization, BRICS cooperation, and we are saying that enough is enough. We must make South Africa first. That must be our motto. We must put the poorest of the poor first. DIRCO mustn't cater for the elites. DIRCO must cater for the poor. And right now, DIRCO is not catering for the poor. It's only catering for the people who have the money, who have the wealth. Foreign policy without economic transformation is meaningless. A flag without land means nothing. An anthem without mineral ownership means nothing. Political freedom without economic freedom is incomplete liberation. And our liberation is yet to be done. We need to fight. We need to take this department and we need to go out there and we need to say, we're going to split right the things of the past. Before we have foreign direct investment, before you bring the people to invest here and build stuff, we need land justice first. We need our people to get our land back first. Otherwise, we're just enriching the same thieves that stole the land from our people, that are standing there and living in Beijing and living everywhere on our name as South Africa and getting all the deals and giving nothing to our people, leaving our people poor. Enough is enough. We don't want that anymore, Mr. Chair. This budget comes before this House while South Africa faces a debt burden approaching 6 trillion, collapsing infrastructure. Yet we have so much opportunity in the world today. We must have a doctrine of economic diplomacy, a doctrine of industrialization, a doctrine of beneficiation at source, a doctrine of sovereign development, a doctrine that places the poor and marginalized majority at the center of foreign policy. And Mr. Chair, we will not be bullied by anybody. We will not be told who will be our friends. We will not be told who will be our enemies. And we will definitely not be told what we can do with BE, what we can do with land reform, or anything else pertains to our people. MK is going to stop this nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Chetty.
Greetings and salutations, Honorable House Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, fellow South Africans. This department is led by an absentee minister who himself has failed to adhere to a simple commitment that he had volunteered to the committee, and that was to honor his commitment of attending just one portfolio committee per parliamentary quarter, and he failed. The minister is more interested in shining his marbles for the upcoming ANC Congress and the prospects of a top 6 position, and with the latest pending Phala impeachment debacle, he must be hedging his bets. Can you be any more irresponsible than that? And we wonder why the department is in chaos, issuing contradicting positions on international conflict scenarios. It is no wonder DIRCO spends more time during crisis management.
Honorable Chetty, can you please take a seat? There's a point of order.
Thank you very
Honorable
much.
Deputy Minister, what are you rising on? Order, honorable members.
House Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm rising on a point of order because the honorable member keeps on referring us to issues that we are not here for. Where does the issue of the top 6 leadership enter on the budget of the department? Can he focus on the speech? If he doesn't have the speech, he must just forfeit the speaking rights. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable DM. I will determine once he proceeds to see if the speech is relevant to the budget vote. I have been listening as well, and I will determine in time when he continues. Continue, Honorable Chetty.
Can you be any more irresponsible than that? And we wonder why this department is in chaos, issuing contradictory positions on international conflict scenarios. It is no wonder DIRCO spends more time crisis management as opposed to being an active driver of our foreign policy. We received the budget vote 6 in the Portfolio Committee in a very basic format. We wonder why. Let's address what's conveniently not mentioned in the budget. The shenanigans surrounding the 180 million Rand New York pilot project. After international embarrassment implication, ambassadors, ministers, officials, and the Guptas, these shenanigans have died a natural death. Now defunct ex-minister Pando, who took the moral high ground promising this very parliament that heads will roll over the debacle. Sadly, the only head that rolled was their very own. Let's discuss the vanity project of the Pan-African Parliament and the millions it cost us to keep it afloat. Monthly rentals of 3.2 million paid to Gallagher Estate. The current long-delayed, infamous Pan-African Parliament precinct has already cost us in excess of 100 million, and that excludes the 40 million a year rental to Gallagher Estates. Minister, with the current situation, South Africa cannot afford this project anymore. Over R500 million has already been spent on rentals, and with nothing more than a barren piece of land to show thus far. 3 years after the promised soil turning lies a field of wild grass, wetlands, and a sanctuary for butterflies. Oh, and let's not forget about the officials implicated in selling the title deeds of the very land without the department's knowledge. All of these millions wasted on a vanity project in the name of the late visionary leader, Tata Mandela, who must be turning in his grave to see the squander and pilfering that his ANC cronies are doing in his name, while millions of our youth are unemployed and families are without homes. Talking about jobs and homes, we have the African Renaissance Fund, which should be called the ANC Renaissance Fund, because as much as the comrades try to hoodwink the committee into believing that Cuba is on the African continent, hence the justification of millions of rands in donations being channeled Cuba's way. All of this aid is sent to assist Cuban citizens, whilst our very own poor South Africans are left both jobless and homeless. Furthermore, allow me to take this parliament into confidence and expose the audacity in which both the leadership of the Pan-African Parliament and its membership countries dismiss South Africa's interest as the host nation. The South African delegation made an earnest appeal to the Pan-African Parliament leadership to postpone the plenary sittings to respect our Freedom Day and Workers' Day. When this was put to the plenary, South Africa failed to get a single country to second the request. This is the lack of respect that the member countries of the Pan-African Parliament has for the millions of rands that we waste to host them on our South African soil. The age-old Chinese proverb, never bite the hand that feeds you, definitely did not resonate with the behavior of the member nations. This further vindicates the DA's proposed submission to terminate the host nation agreement that South Africa has with the Pan-African Parliament. As I conclude to my fellow South Africans, if you're living in Johannesburg, Tswana, Nelson Mandela Bay, or eThekwini, and you want to see the change from where you are living improve to the lives of citizens in the city of Cape Town, right here in the Western Cape, or Mgeni in KZN, where I come from, then on the 4th of November, you go out and you vote. You vote for the DA for a better city. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Msomo.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The Economic Freedom Fighters reject budget vote 6 of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. We do so because we are convinced that we have lost direction in terms of delineating what our foreign policy priorities are and how we should pursue those. Just yesterday, the continent celebrated 63 years of the formation of the Organization of African Unity, whose primary purpose was to free the continent from the tentacles of colonial repression and exploitation. Today, we are reminded that Africa's strength has always been found in unity, culture, innovation, and hope for a better future from the richness of our earth in terms of minerals and raw materials. We honor the unbreakable spirit of the continent that refused to die. From the scars of slavery and colonialism, we rose. Through the fires of liberation struggles, we stood tall. The founding fathers of the OAU and its recent iteration, the African Union, prioritize the economic and social unification of Africa because they correctly realize that we can never develop in silos where we were condemned by the European colonialism. But to demonstrate the lack of seriousness to African unity, the government led by Mr. Ramaphosa deployed a well-known xenophobe, Gaten McKenzie, to speak on behalf of our government on such an historic and important day. There's no self-respecting Africanist who can stomach the bile that Gaten vomits each time he speaks about our continent. We salute the African ambassadors for rejecting the disrespect from the GNU government to spit on the faces of our forefathers on the vision about the unity of Africa by rejecting to be addressed by that non-entity called Gaten. Chairperson, the budget allocated to this department is simply not sufficient. The almost 2% increase will not be impactful for the central role the department should be playing in forging African unity and cementing our place as a force in the global affairs. The department has a vacancy rate of 26.3%, severely crippling its capacity to lead South Africa's charge at the global stage. There's no plan to address this almost treasonous neglect of the department in this budget. A country faced with high levels of unemployment, and we have a department that has no plans to fill all vacant posts in its budget. Every year, the department acknowledges that spending is mainly affected by exchange rate fluctuation that are caused by main currencies as well as local currencies, and as 60% of the department's budget is spent abroad. Yet to this day, they fail to convince National Treasury to ensure that the appropriation allocated to the department addresses this exchange rate volatility. Chairperson, at each and every committee meeting we've had with our missions abroad, there's been a consistent outcry about the ICT challenges these missions have, and yet again, no funding has been allocated for ICT modernization for our foreign missions for this financial year. It is quite telling that 174 million allocated for properties will only cover 3 major projects, which is in Denmark, the London residential accommodation, and the London Chancery boiler system. Yet our infrastructure here in SADC and in Africa has dilapidated. Our property in Zimbabwe is like a glorified shack, and in Zambia, we're not even owning our residential or chancellor. And in Mozambique, we have failed to ensure that the property is transferred to the South African government since the dawn of democracy. Minister, this department cannot do these simple things like that because the minister himself is not serious. He has completely neglected his duties to account to the committee and always sends his deputies to stand for him. He goes even a full quarter without appearing even once in the committee. We have called for the African Renaissance and International Cooperation Fund to be expanded to send aid to Cuba, our friends who stood firmly by our side as South Africa during apartheid, and for South Africa to continue the fight at the ICJ on the case against the United State of Israel for the genocide they continue to perpetuate in Palestine. In 2025-2026 financial year, where we saw a slight increase on the budget due to us hosting G20 meetings and summits. It's 6 months later, Minister, what are the practical achievements and benefits that came with hosting the summit? What are the trade agreements that were signed that have now attracted investment and job opportunities for our people? We need a return on investment, and we warned in the committee that, you know, the target you set for the department is just a tick box exercise with no practical measurable outcomes. In the face of imperialism being emboldened by the Trump administration, we need to continue to raise our voice of solidarity with the people of Venezuela and call out the barbaric behavior of abducting President Maduro and his wife, Celia Maduro, as a stand by the US to force regime change and seek to put in a puppet government that will sell the soul and oil of Venezuela. We must once again salute the brave Iranian Revolutionary Guards for their unwavering commitment to never bow down to imperialism, even when the US killed their supreme leader to seek regime change to impress the bloodthirsty hounds of Israel. Against all odds, the brave soldiers of Iran have secured the Strait of Hormuz despite Trump's meltdowns. We continue to fund observer missions for election purposes in SADC, and yet we have a government that fails to call out election shenanigans of former liberation movements who want to hold on to power by hook or crook. We should change the way we do things. We can't continue to have diplomacy that does not primarily focus on economic diplomacy. There's no justification as to why
Honorable
society fails to ensure
Honorable
that.
Mhlongo, can
What
you
is
please
it? I've
take
got
a
40
seat?
seconds.
No, you must listen to me. What do you mean when you say, what is it?
So
Take a seat, there's a hand. Honorable Matopa?
Thank you very much, House Chair. On a point of order, Chair,
Yes.
that the honorable member on the podium cannot refer to the minister as a known entity. She must withdraw that. Even if she has passed that, she must withdraw that, Chair.
Okay, we will, I don't, honorable member, did you say the minister is a non-entity?
Thank you, House Chair. I said the minister is a xenophobe. That is what he is, and a non-entity at a global stage. That one is the fact. He's a non-entity. He tried to go there at Morocco to watch the final of CAP. No one even bothered to greet him
Honorable
because he's a
Mhlongo.
non-entity. He's a
Honorable
non-starter in
Mhlongo,
politics.
No respect.
Honorable Mhlongo, even that it is unparliamentary to call a minister a xenophobe. Can you please withdraw that?
He's a xenophobe. He's saying it on every platform. that
Honorable
Abaha-
Mhlongo, Honorable Mhlongo, I'm asking you to withdraw that.
Can I finish my speech and then when I'm
Honorable
done?
Mhlongo, I am directing you to withdraw that.
To withdraw what? That is a xenophobe. You want
Yes.
me to lie? What is,
Honorable Mhlongo,
okay, ngicela ubeke ngesintu, mama.
Honorable
House
Mhlongo,
Chairperson, ibeke ngesintu ukuthi yini?
Honorable Mhlongo, I'm asking you to withdraw that.
House Chairperson, I withdraw, but uzonda abantu
No,
abala
on a
Africa.
point of order, Chair.
Honorable
Uzonda
Mhlongo,
abantu base Africa, he's a xenophobe.
On a
He's
point
one-
of order, Chair.
he's African.
Honorable Mhlongo.
She's not embarrassed. Why are you making me withdraw
Honorable
when the man is
Mhlongo.
not embarrassed?
Honorable Mhlongo, you know the rules of the House. You can't cast aspersions on a minister or a member of this House without bringing substantive proof, and you know the processes. So
The
we
proof
can't
is there.
go,
Go and watch
we
his
can't go,
videos.
no, Honorable Mhlongo. We can't continue on that, and we all know the rules of the House, and we must abide by them. Please continue.
House Chairperson. Now, we
Now, on
should,
a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Mente.
Chair, thank you. Your table staff must please monitor our hands. I've been having my hand up on the platform. Chair, House Chairperson. Firstly, you must also acquaint yourself with the rules. There is no rule that says a person must be called to order for as a point that has long passed. Rule 92 is clear. You raise a point of order when the incident is taking place. You don't wait and then you raise it later, and you should not entertain that. Secondly, Gayton Mackenzie, every day when he takes a platform, he says Africans
Honorable Mente.
mabambe. He
Honorable
says
Mente.
mabambe, so that is not
Honorable
xenophobe.
Mente.
He is
Honorable
xenophobic.
Mente. Honorable Mente. We
Yes.
don't address each other with names. It's either you say Mr. or Honorable Member. You can't
No.
just say Gayton Mackenzie. We don't address.
Mr. Gayton
Yes.
Mackenzie, Mr.
Yes.
Gayton
It's the
Mackenzie,
obsession, House Chair,
every
it's the
time
obsession.
he takes a platform,
No,
he calls
Honorable
that
Mente.
Africans must leave South Africa. Is that not
Honorable
xenophobe?
Mente. Honorable Mente.
I'm listening, Chair.
Yes, you are out of order. We have passed on that. And as you are
No, we
saying
have
now,
not. We have not
you
passed. We are on
no,
it. You can't
Honorable
ask my
Mente.
member to withdraw that
Honorable
when
Mente.
Gayton Mackenzie himself
Honorable Mente.
is xenophobe.
I have asked the member to withdraw and she did withdraw, and we are continuing. My rule is final and we are done with that. The member is now on the podium and finishing the remaining seconds of her speech. So we have passed that and I've ruled on that, and we are not going to go back to that. And for you
My
saying
point exactly,
you
Chair.
are
You shouldn't have
concerning-
entertained that
No,
other point of
Honorable
order.
Mente, IT, can you please switch off the mic of Honorable Mente? We want to continue with the proceeding of the budget. Honorable Mhlongo, please proceed.
House Chairperson, wait, don't move my time. I've got a problem. When you stop me here, my time was left with 40 seconds. As I'm sitting down, I see it going down, 45, 44, and now they've put it at 45. Why? Call your table staff to order. Put my 1 second, I want it. Start there. Please, ask them. There they are, ask them.
Honorable Mhlongo,
I
Please
can't be
take your seat.
disrespected in that man.
Honorable Mhlongo, please take a seat. Honorable Member.
Chair, I think you are missing something here. Honorable Mente, she raised a point of order and the order was on you. To say you allowed the member there to entertain a point that the speaker on the podium has passed on it. And now you have allowed her, and you even took a decision based on that issue. And the matter that Honorable Mende is raising is to say, why did you allow that? Can you please rule on that one to say and agree that you are wrong in the first place to allow her to speak on the point that the speaker on the podium is actually already.
Honorable member, as much as you are saying, you see the speaker on the podium has not moved. She is still here. Each and every member here has a right to raise a point of order according to the speech. So the fact that it has moved 2 seconds after or 10 seconds after, it's no there, or whether they've moved or not. But if a member is raising that point, they have a right to do so. And I gave an opportunity to Honorable Mhlongo to confirm if she did. And she confirmed something else. And that is when I said, can you please withdraw that? I had not even entertained that part of the point of order that was raised by Honorable Matop. So in fact, you are out of order yourself and you are wrong by saying such. Because I said Honorable Mhlongo must withdraw on what she said here on the podium. Now, it's not because of the point that was raised by Honorable Matop. So no, don't engage. I'm not asking you to engage. I want to give Honorable Mhlongo an opportunity to continue with the speech. But Honorable Mhlongo, you were saying your time was eaten there. How much time did you have? Because I saw that it was 40. I am not sure whether it was 40. It's fine. I'll even give Honorable Mhlongo the 7 seconds so that she continues.
Yeah, that the table staff is out of order. You must call them to order. Now, we should change the way we do things. We can't continue to have diplomacy that does not primarily focus on economic diplomacy. There's no justification as to why DTIC fails to ensure that we have trade at our chairs in our missions to ensure economic diplomacy is prioritized. The progressive forces of the world can rely on the unwavering solidarity of EFF, as we're the only organization here in South Africa that does not speak with a forked tongue when it comes to our internationalist outlook. We reject this project with the contempt it deserves, as it will not address the needs of the department and will not be able to better position South Africa in the global stage. Once again, we salute the African ambassadors for having rejected that invite of Africa Day celebration of South African government by refusing to be addressed by that non-entity xenophobic 18 McKenzie. We salute you, we see you, you are brave African ambassadors. Never cower, never allow yourself to be addressed by a non-entity xenophobic 18 McKenzie. Thank you very much.
I will now recognize Honorable Mwango on the virtual platform.
Honorable Chairperson, the IFP supports budget vote 6 on international relations and cooperation because foreign policy is not distant from daily life. It must help grow the economy, expand trade and investment, and create jobs. The department is pursuing an Africa-centered foreign policy, strengthening regional integration and advancing economic diplomacy in support of the National Development Plan and the Medium-Term Development Plan. This is consistent with the IFP's emphasis on practical governance, inclusive growth, and policies that reduce poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We welcome the department's efforts to link foreign policy more directly to domestic priorities, strengthening bilateral and multilateral partnerships, supporting the African Continental Free Trade Area, and using South Africa's international presence to promote exports, tourism, and investment. This is important, Honorable Chairperson, because economic growth must increasingly be supported by opening markets and creating opportunities for South African businesses abroad. We note with concern that Budget 6 strongly promotes African integration and the free movement of people through structures such as SADC and the African Continental Free Trade Area, while failing to adequately address the domestic pressure caused by weak border management, and illegal immigration. The government continues to dismiss legitimate concerns around unemployment, crime, and pressure on public services instead of confronting failures in immigration enforcement and state capacity. At the same time, the IFP family rejects xenophobia, vigilantism, and violence against foreign nationals. We believe South Africa's foreign policy must balance Pan-African solidarity with the protection of the national interest, social stability, and effective migration management. At the same time, we note with concern the high vacancy rate within the department of 26.3%. The vacancy rate of this scale directly affects the department's ability to support missions abroad and deliver on its mandate. We are also concerned that no dedicated funding has been allocated for information and communication technology modernization. In a modern diplomatic environment where efficiency, coordination, and responsiveness are essential, the slow pace of digital transformation risks undermining the effectiveness of South Africa's missions. We support the department's continued work in advancing economic diplomacy, strengthening South Africa's role in Africa and the global South. We appreciate utilizing instruments such as the African Renaissance and International Cooperation Fund to promote development, peace, and good governance across the continent. These efforts are important for positioning South Africa as a regional leader and for advancing long-term development objectives. The IFP supports Budget Vote 6 because South Africa needs a foreign policy that is principled, Africa-centered, and economically beneficial to its people. The IFP supports the vote, the budget vote. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now recognize Honorable Matopa.
Thank you very much, House Chair, honorable members. I would like to applaud the Honorable Gayton Mackenzie for being patriotic and having the interest in listening to the plight of South Africans. The EFF confuses border control with xenophobia because they've abandoned the ordinary South Africans who suffer daily from illegal immigration and organized crimes. Chairperson, the Patriotic Alliance rises today.
Honorable
to
Matopa,
debate
can you
vote
take a
6.
seat? Honorable Mhlongo, what's your point of order?
Ngiyabonga sihlalo lo ngaphambili bengicela kubuta ukuthi le lunga lelingaphambili le empty engqondweni lingakhona kuthatha umbuto.
Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Mhlongo. You can't say that. You can't refer to an honorable member as empty. It is wrong, Jay, as humans, besides being an honorable member or being a member of parliament, you would not want anyone to refer to you as an empty person. We can't do that. You can please withdraw that first before I ask.
I withdraw. Can she take a question?
Honorable Matopa, are you willing to take a question?
No, Chair.
Thank you.
The Patriotic Alliance rises today to debate vote 6, international relations and cooperation. This vote is about protecting South Africans abroad, ensuring that our citizens are never abandoned and safeguarding our youth from exploitation. The foreign policy is not merely about engagements abroad. It is a fundamentally about improving the lives of our people here at home. Our foreign policy must serve the people of South Africa by advancing economic growth, reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and strengthening stability across the continent. International relations must always respond to the daily realities and needs of ordinary South Africans. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, must do more to assist South Africans stranded abroad, whether stranded due to financial hardship, expired visas, or unforeseen crisis, our citizens deserve swift and effective support from their government. Too often, families are left desperate, pleading for help, and that arrives too late or not at all. Vote 6 must ensure that DIRCO has the capacity and the will to act decisively in these situations. This vote is not merely about diplomacy and embassies. We must warn our youth about the growing danger of international mafias. Unsuspecting young South Africans are being lured with promises of jobs. Thailand, only the end of trapped in scam centers in Cambodia and Myanmar. These criminal networks exploit unskilled youth, forcing them into illegal operations under threat and coercion. DIRCO must work with the law enforcement, international partners, and community organizations to raise awareness and protect our young people from these predators. Vote 6 must strengthen DIRCO's role in consular protection. South Africans abroad must know that their government will stand by them, whether in times of crisis, exploitation, or danger. This is not a privilege, it is a constitutional duty. Honorable Chair, international relations are not only about diplomacy between states, they are about protecting the lives and dignity of our citizens, wherever they may be. Vote 6 must deliver a DIRCO that is proactive, responsive, and committed to safeguarding South Africans abroad. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable van Staden.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, strong and stable international relations are a cornerstone of effective governance worldwide. They are essential not only for economic growth and stability, but also for fostering cooperation and mutual trust between nations. It is crucial to understand the differences between countries, particularly in terms of their economic policies and relationships, in order to build and maintain these ties. For countries facing economic challenges, sound and respectful international partnerships are vital for recovery and future growth. Reckless rhetoric or verbal attacks against nations that provide support can be counterproductive, ultimately isolating a country from valuable allies and undermining its own interests. We have seen firsthand what happens when strong economic relationships deteriorate. When those partnerships turn sour, the very support a country depends on can be withdrawn overnight. The consequences are immediate and severe, a health budget suddenly facing a shortfall of nearly 7.9 billion rand in the previous financial year, and critical frontline aid to workers losing their jobs almost instantly. This is the stark reality of what occurs when vital relationships collapse without warning. South Africa claims to follow a policy of non-alignment, but that shouldn't just be talk. It needs to show in how we act in practice. Right now, our approach doesn't really reflect true non-alignment. Fixing our relationship with the United States, the world's biggest economy, should be a top priority. The Freedom Front Plus is committed to doing everything it can to make that happen. A single individual at the Thule House in Johannesburg, making ill-considered statements on the international stage, instead of adopting a diplomatic and constructive approach, seeking time, building goodwill, and maintaining respectful relations with key partners. There is a tendency to antagonize those whose support is vital. Such actions undermine the country's strategic priorities. They do not advance critical objectives, such as the implementing of the African Continental Free Trade Area, to boost South African exports, strengthening economic diplomacy with trading partners, leveraging South Africa's G20 presidency to address global inequality and poverty, or promoting peace, security, and socio-economic development within SADC and across the continent. It is, however, encouraging to note from the report that with regard to properties, the department has allocated 174 million of its 210 million capital budget to 3 major renovation projects: the official residence in Denmark, the boiler system at Chancery in London, and residential accommodation in London as well. We support the report's recommendation that headquarters and missions abroad must be adequately resourced to address the current 26% vacancy rate. This should include quarterly reporting on the implementation of a strategy to fill these critical posts, as well as clear plans to alleviate the burden placed on staff due to personal shortages. I thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will now recognize Honorable Kobe.
I thank you very much, Slalo. To the honorable members in the House, I would stretch my greetings to you and everybody else at home who's joining us on the online platform. Honorable House Chair, this budget reflects a continued failure of strategic focus in South Africa's international relations. Action SA believes the guiding principle of the Republic must always be simple: put South Africans first. It is increasingly clear that the GNU does not share in that priority. We asked the minister, how much does it cost to maintain South Africa's foreign missions across the world? A whopping 3.5 billion to sustain 115 embassies and missions. Let's be concrete and bring it closer to home, Honorable Mahumapelo. The mission in Nouakchott, Mauritania costs 16.1 million annually. In Malabo, Equatorial New Guinea costs 15.6 million rand. Ask any unemployed South African or struggling small business owner or a pensioner to locate these places on a map. And most importantly, to explain maybe what return are they getting. And the answer will be simple: absolutely nothing. Most damning of all is the department's own admission that it has no mechanism, none whatsoever, to evaluate the performance or values of these missions. That is expenditure without accountability. Honorable House Chair, we all know what this is really about. It has become an open secret that too many of these postings exist not for national interest, but as cushion deployments for political cadres. South Africans are expected more and more to tighten their belts while the system continually funds inefficiency and entitlement abroad. A serious and focused government would do what many comparable developing countries are already doing: consolidate diplomatic representation, accredit missions across multiple countries, and eliminate duplication that no longer serves national interest. Instead, this administration chooses scale without scrutiny and cost without consequence. As Action SA, we believe that this IR must urgently focus on South Africa's foreign policy and diplomatic footprint around measurable national priorities. First on the list must be the growing migration crisis, where hundreds of thousands continue to enter South Africa, driven by governance and economic collapse and human rights abuses in their own region. Regimes such as the ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, Frelimo in Mozambique, and other liberation movements who have turned oppressors have presided over democratic erosion, political violence, and economic implosion without consequences that spill directly into South Africa. And we agree with the portfolio chairperson, Honorable Mahumapelo, that a budget must allow the minister to move across Africa and ensure there is regional stability. Yet his response to all of these issues have been silent. When elections are undermined, when opposition leaders are persecuted, and when political violence erupts in neighboring states, our diplomatic posture is muted, cautious, or absolutely absent. For example, in 2024 elections in Mozambique, the elections were rigged and violence followed. Our president attended the inauguration smiling. What a great endorsement from South Africa. It is time for South Africa to put South Africans first in its foreign policy. That begins with honest engagement in our region, not passive observation of its collapse. This budget reflects the opposite of that: a continued absence of strategic focus and a diplomatic posture that does not serve the South African people. I thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member, do you have a point of order?
Siyabonga Hlalo. Sihlalo angazi noma busubonile ukuthi i-GNU ayishayelani izandla yini. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Member, there is not a point of order. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Honorable Muraka.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Let me take this opportunity and pass my regards to the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Honorable Ronald Lamola, the Deputy Minister, Alvin Botes, and our Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the esteemed members of this august House. I think, Chairperson, from the utmost, let me take this opportunity and clarify some of the sentiments that were said here by honorable members that were not even factual. Just yesterday, when we celebrated Africa Day as a country, we had convened as the Justice and Crime Prevention Security Cluster and met with those that are concerned about issues of anti-foreigners sentiments. And we did meet yesterday with civil society movements and various political parties. I am really dismayed, honorable members, that those that are grandstanding here and claiming to be representing South Africans chose not to attend that important meeting on a very important day where we celebrate Africa Month. I need to assure the rest of the South African people that indeed the government of the South Africa is preoccupied with the issue of instilling law and order in the country. And no one is allowed to take the law into their hands and discriminate against our fellow African brothers and sisters. House Chairperson, the issue that I also want to emphasize about issues of African unity, I want to quote one of the African leaders and philosophers, Kwame Nkrumah, the son of the soil, who said the following about African unity: we must unite now or perish. We must recognize that our economic independence resides with our African Union and also requires the same concentration upon the political achievements. I think, Honorable Douglas, the issue that you said here is misguided and it lacks facts. The issue that the department is more about protocol issues and without addressing the socio-economic issues that are faced by our people. You need to understand that DIRCO has got a program called economic diplomacy. It is through that program that we champion through our embassies abroad that we are able to register serious investment coming to our country, where they are leading to serious bankable projects that are contributing to the economic development of our country. We are also going to remind you, Honorable Douglas, that South Africa has recently hosted SA Investment Conference, where close to 900 billion worth of foreign direct investment was brought to the South African economy. So when you speak here, don't grandstand and speak without facts. Focus on what we do as a department and make it a point that you are factual. Honorable Minister, don't listen to these detractors who want to change your leadership style.
Honorable Deputy Minister, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order. The honorable member, please raise your point.
Thank you, Chair. I raise on a point of order, Rule 92. The Deputy Minister must not address our member directly. She must speak through the Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, will you please speak through the Chair?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I need to indicate, House Chair, that South Africa remains fully committed to all the fundamental principles of African unity. We stand for peaceful and a united Africa. We stand for an African continent that is prosperous. We also stand for an African continent that occupies its rightful place amongst the world family of nations. House Chairperson, through various bilateral and multilateral platforms in which we participate in, will always continue to advocate for peace, unity amongst Africans. We'll do so whilst recognizing that it is through joint efforts by all states to make sure that we address the socio-economic challenges and the economic growth of our continent of Africa. Honorable Minister, it is only through your leadership that you managed to convince the foreign minister's retreat over the past weekend. And I need to assure the rest of the South African people that on the top of the agenda of that foreign ministers retreat was the whole issue on how can we deal with issues of regional economic transformation and integration. And those issues were really addressed. And these issues, House Chairperson, will go a long way in helping us to address this issue of migration that we continue to be faced with as a country. Honorable Minister, as I conclude, I need to remind the Honorable Gaiety that you are not a Holy Spirit. The nature of the work of foreign ministry is that you need to travel. And every time when you delegate your deputy ministers, you are always being guided by the principle that you were taught by our former democratic president, Nelson
Honorable
Mandela, who said,
Minister,
a leader is like a
your time
shepherd.
is
He always
expired.
stays behind the flock whilst letting the most nimble go front. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Modisi Mpaya.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable members, the Minister and the Deputy Ministers, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, and fellow South Africans. This is not an ordinary budget debate. This is a debate about whether South Africa and the African continent will shape the changing global order to advance our own development and prosperity. Budget Vote 6 comes before this House at a defining moment. Domestically, our people continue to face unemployment at over 32%, deepening poverty, inequality, and rising costs of living. Millions of young South Africans are not asking about geopolitics. They are asking where the next opportunity or job will come from. At the same time, the global order is undergoing profound transformation. Trade wars are intensifying. Proxy conflicts continue to destabilize regions. Competition over strategic minerals, energy, technology, and markets is accelerating rapidly. In this environment, countries that fail to position themselves strategically will become dependent on decisions made elsewhere. Those who control the economy of the future will shape the politics of the day. That is why this 7.2 billion allocation to DIRCO is not a luxury expenditure. It is an investment in South Africa's economic recovery. It is an investment in sovereignty. It is an investment in jobs, industrialization, regional stability, and Africa's future. Honorable members, foreign policy is no longer confined to diplomatic ceremonies and protocols. Foreign policy determines whether South African products access new markets. It determines whether investors build factories here or elsewhere. It influences trade, tourism, infrastructure financing, and economic growth. Foreign policy is economic policy. That is why economic diplomacy must sit at the center of DIRCO's work. Our embassies must become active centers for investment attraction, trade promotion, export support, and economic partnerships. Every diplomatic mission must help create opportunities for South African businesses, workers, and young entrepreneurs. The success of this budget cannot be measured only on meetings attended. It must be measured by jobs created, exports expanded, investments secured, and industries strengthened. Diplomacy must deliver development. Because a nation that cannot convert diplomacy into development will struggle to convert freedom into prosperity. This budget allocates over 4.2 billion towards strengthening our missions abroad and economic diplomacy programs, while 1.1 billion is directed to the African Renaissance Funds for peace missions and post-conflict reconstruction. The world is entering a new industrial era driven by demand for strategic minerals essential for renewable energy and advanced technologies. Africa sits at the center of this transition. South Africa holds the world's largest reserves of platinum group metals of over 80% globally, along with vast manganese, chrome, and other critical resources valued at more than 2.5 trillion US dollars. But for generations, Africa exported wealth while importing underdevelopment. That cycle must end. South Africa must champion a unified African strategy on critical minerals and beneficiation. We cannot continue exporting raw materials while importing finished products and unemployment. Africa's minerals wealth must become the foundation for African industrial growth, innovation, and decent job creation. The future belongs not to countries that extract resources, but to those that manufacture, beneficiate, and industrialize. Regional integration remains essential to South Africa's long-term economic recovery. Currently, the intra-African trade stands at only around 15% of the continent's total trade, far below potential. The African Continental Free Trade Area presents Africa with a historic opportunity to deepen intra-African trade, strengthen regional value chains, and reduce dependence on external markets. But integration must move beyond summit declarations. It must be visible in rail corridors, ports, energy partnerships, transport infrastructure, and coordinated industrial development across the continent. As the chair of SADC in 2026, South Africa has a responsibility to accelerate this agenda. Projects such as the Lesotho Highlands Water Project Phase 2, with projected a cost of over 53 billion, and regional energy cooperation with Mozambique, Namibia, and the DRC are not simply infrastructure projects. They are instruments of economic transformation, water security for 26 million South Africans in Gauteng and surrounding provinces.
Your time has expired.
I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Mesho.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable members, the Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperation is concerned that most of DIRCO's 2026-27 budget allocation of 27.3 billion rand will be swallowed by inflation and exchange rate pressures, enabling neither new programs nor substantive work to be done. National Treasury continues to impose rigid ceilings on employee compensation, severely restricting DIRCO's ability to fully resource its missions and diplomatic outposts abroad. This impacts the department's capacity to protect South African citizens and businesses in active conflict zones. The ACDP calls for ring-fenced funding for consular protections, targeted exemptions for critical posts, and prioritization of staff to high-risk regions where South Africans face the greatest danger. We also call for investment in secure digital platforms for consular services that would reduce reliance on costly in-person staffing while still ensuring accessibility. The ACDP also calls for a review mechanism so that ceilings do not undermine constitutional obligations to protect citizens abroad. At the same time, we see significant underspending on missions and infrastructure, more than 1 billion rand in 2024 24/25 and irregular spending of 44.5 million rand. Around 60% of this budget is spent outside South Africa, where fluctuating exchange rates makes it vulnerable. The ACDP urges Parliament to demand data on measurable impact with ethical consistency and transparency in global engagement. It must attract economic partners like the USA, not chase them away while we waste tens of millions on litigation that has been by a senior official publicly endorsing calls for South Africa to revive nuclear weapons. This budget still does not show clear measurable impact, strong anti-corruption action, nor respect for taxpayers. According to Auditor General reports, ongoing non-compliance severely delayed property maintenance, with some state-owned properties abroad unserviced for over a decade, and procurement violations have stalled capital projects. Delays in identifying service providers for required renovations and IT modernizations have repeatedly stalled capital asset spending. DIRCO is severely
Your time has expired.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Zibi.
No, it can't be. Okay.
The next speaker is Honorable Kwanka on the virtual platform.
Yeah, House Chair, I knew you were making a mistake. Thank you, House Chair. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has been allocated about 7 billion rands for this current financial year. Yet the reality facing South Africa's embassies is nothing short of a national embarrassment. Some embassies have not been maintained in over 16 years. Officials are operating with collapsing infrastructure, outdated systems, and in some missions, visas are being issued by hand because systems have failed. Handwritten visas in 2026, and yet we're told that South Africa is a diplomatic giant. What kind of giant cannot even modernize its own systems? DIRCO must engage the National Treasury urgently to renovate these missions and modernize ICT infrastructure, because South Africa cannot claim leadership abroad while our own diplomatic houses are falling apart. But, honorable members, the deeper crisis is not only financial, it is ideological. South Africa is no longer respected on the African continent in the way it once was. We are currently treated as a refuge for illegal immigration and a cash cow through the African Renaissance Fund, while our people are struggling with unemployment, poverty, and collapsing services. Programs like the African Renaissance Fund should not operate as endless charity. The African Renaissance Fund should be turned into an instrument of soft power, as the foreign policy says in this respect. Every cent spent outside our borders must advance South Africa's economic and strategic interests. Those who are not willing to respect South Africa must go to hell, literally. Because an African Renaissance Fund that places the burden of Africa on South Africa's shoulders while other governments destroy their own countries through corruption, instability, and poor governance is a scam. We are funding election observation missions while South Africans sit unemployed. Why are we not using those resources to drive trade, infrastructure, and economic projects through the African Free Trade Area Agreement so that South Africa benefits economically from its leadership role on the continent? House Chair, the last 14 South African soldiers died in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the name of peacekeeping. Last year, I meant to say, 14 lives lost, families shattered, coffins draped in South African flag. And what happened afterwards? The DRC and the United States signed agreements giving American companies priority access to the DRC's vast mineral wealth. America secured the deal. South Africa buried the soldiers. That cannot continue. The world has changed. Global politics is no longer about charity. It's about interests. It's about influence. It's about economic power. South Africa must stop using taxpayers' money to be the messiah of the African continent while our communities collapse under unemployment, crime, and illegal immigration. The GNU speaks about renewal, but its statement of intent is dangerously vague on foreign policy. That conversation was ignored during coalition negotiations,
time has
and
expired.
now is the time for the country to have that, and we are paying the price for that silence. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speak? Is Honorable Zibi on the platform? The next speaker then is Honorable Dr. Mamani on the virtual platform.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. We gather on this day, post the celebration of the Africa Day, and I wanted to reflect just on a few matters that speak to our own foreign policy. On the first instance, if it is indeed true that our foreign policy must be based on human rights and trade, the first objective that we've all got to be focused on is the fact that Africa still only represents 3.5% of global GDP. That is pitiful. Relative to the fact that we are the fastest growing continent as far as population growth is concerned. By mid-century, we will have over 1.4 billion people. So if we do not begin to strengthen intertrade and figure out quite intentionally how we make Agenda 2063 a practical realities with leaders that can actually deliver on it, we will see profound deaths that take place in this continent. If we think we have an immigration crisis now, we must appreciate that if we fail to grow Africa's economy as brothers and sisters, we will be doomed to face the challenges of a future that is coming. Secondly, Minister Lamola, I want to state to you quite categorically, I was in India recently and I met our High Commission there. Part of the dilemma is the capacitation and vacancies there. In truth, South Africa exports many of its agricultural products to India, and yet there was no staffing that was focused as the Agricultural Council. That is a limitation that limits our ability to trade with nations such as India. If we learn anything from the Indian economy, is that they've successfully managed to move at least over 250 million people from poverty, which is a lesson that we ought to be learning. Thirdly, honorable members, many people have come to blame our constitution when it provides in section 27, when the government fails to do basics in healthcare. They point to the constitution as they point to the immigrant to blame. We must remind ourselves that the constitution assumes when it says everyone in it, that it is everyone who is here legally. So we have to, in dealing with the question of immigration, ensure that we fund better border management authority and ensure that we do not scapegoat our African brothers and sisters, but rather focus on delivery of basic services. If you come and you consume healthcare in South Africa, the country from which you come from needs to also be levied likewise. Lastly, I want to highlight the fact that more crucial is the fact that South Africa's moral authority in the continent is beginning to weaken. We simply ignore in election observer missions when they state categorically that elections have been rigged in particular countries. We cozy up to dictators. We make it palatable that people can celebrate those who don't win elections but take over as coups. This is something that we can ill afford. As Democrats, and South Africa as Democrats, we need to be fast in condemning those who are rigging elections. And I ask you, Minister Lamola, we need to oppose what President Mnangagwa is busy doing in extending his term of office midstream. We continue this practice where we ask people to vote.
Your
People are
time
going to
has
suffer.
expired.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Deputy Minister Botha. Bothas.
Honorable House Chair, Minister Lamola, Deputy Minister Thandi Moraka, Chairperson, Honorable Suprama Mopelo, the DG and his team, honorable members. Honorable Chetty, I suppose that the Democratic Alliance are duty-bound to use AI-generated speeches. But be it as it may, let me take you into confidence on what is the role of a Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Firstly, of course, is on behalf, he's the chief diplomat on behalf of the president, who is the custodian of South Africa's foreign policy. So if you look at the UN member states, you have 193 UN member states. South Africa are obligated through the Minister of DIRCO to service all 193 member states of the UN. We do it, of course, via your 114 diplomatic missions, underpinned, Honorable Chetty, by what we call structured bilateral mechanism. That is both at the level of your binational commissions, your BNC, and your joint consultative mechanism through your JCM. That is bilaterally. Multilaterally, of course, the minister, our chief advocate, when you look at IORA, you look at ZOPACAS, you look at G77, China, you look at BRICS, across all three pillars, both political, security cooperation, financial and economic cooperation, your people-to-people mechanism. That is the key mandate of the Minister of DIRCO. So I thought I must maybe take you into confidence, because those are the political details which I may have omitted from your speech, of course. Having said that, Honorable Douglas, the South Africa derived maximum value from BRICS. The fact that BRICS, if you look at BRICS as a bloc, are now exceeding 21% of our total trade. Here we speak about in excess of 830 billion rand just with BRICS. With your new development bank, we have been a chief recipient and a beneficiary of your new development bank. We speak about more than 11 projects across environmental, your infrastructure agreement in terms of SANRAL, etc. So we are a significant beneficiary. We speak about almost 90 billion rand that we derive value from our partnership in BRICS. But I also thought, honorable members, we have resolved on our intervention in the last administration under Dr. Pandor, and our solidarities with Dr. Pandor for the attack that she have experienced recently, where we have executed a forensic investigation under the tutelage of our DG. There was the processing of responsible officials, and there was a legal process. That is what we have done. So under the 7th administration, Minister Lamola have been able to run, of course, a very tight ship. Ladies and gentlemen, our absolute unequivocal solidarity, of course, with Cuba for the unilateral economic coercive embargo that has been leveled against the people of Fidel Castro. And I think South Africa, history will absolve us in relation to our continued solidarity. This is also the week of where we speak about, paying homage to the struggle of people on self-determination. So, Honorable Douglas, we continue to champion, solidarity with the Palestine people through our ICJ case and a number of support to non-state actors, and our counsel to the Flotilla members that are en route back to South Africa. But we'll continue to appeal to MK to be more principled and not to subscribe to checkbook diplomacy in relation, for example, to auction to the highest bidder the lives, the souls of the people of the Western Sahara. So I thought it's a key and critical issue that I must raise, Honorable Chair. As I proceed, Madam Chairperson, can you just rewind my time?
Please take a seat.
My time, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Deputy Minister, will you take your seat? Order, please. Order, please. I just want to remind the Deputy Minister, as well as all the members, that when there's a point of order and you take your seat, you don't lose your time. The clock has been stopped. Honorable Member, your point of order.
No, thank you. My point of order is that the speaker is misleading the House on MK and on what MK is doing. So as far as I'm concerned, it's actually the JNU and the ANC that put us in this situation.
That is
Honorable Chair.
Honorable Member,
They are actually the reason why our people are in poverty and are suffering, and why our people have to do things like that. Thank you, Mr.
This is not a point of order. It's a point of debate, and you are not on the speaker's list. Honorable Deputy Minister, you can continue.
Honorable Chairperson.
Deputy Minister, please take your seat. There's another point of order.
Sihlalo, njengoba i-GNU le ngapha ithanda i-BRICS, le iyayithanda i-BRICS. Bazwana kuphi labantu? Mabahlukanisela lama blue lights noma kuphi nakuphi. Ngiyabonga Chair.
Honorable member, that also is not a point of order, it's a point of debate, and you're not on the speakers list. Honorable Deputy Minister, please continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chair, our mandate are unequivocal. We'll continue to be the proponents of international law. We'll continue to be the advocates of the transformation of the multilateral system. We'll continue to resist unilateral conduct, advance the African agenda, invest in our young people, and practically execute our active non-alignment. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Is there a speaker for the UAT on the virtual platform? The next speaker is for Al Jamaa, Honorable Ismail Musa.
Thank you. That's why I always come in the name of peace, Chairperson, so that we can have peace. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Deputy Ministers, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Supra, and to the beloved people of our beautiful nation. In the name of Almighty, the most gracious and the most merciful, let me begin by extending the beautiful greeting and prayer of peace to all present. We need it so much, especially in this House. Al Jamaa supports Vote 6 and acknowledges the critical role that international relations play in advancing South Africa's interest, strengthening economic cooperation and promoting peace and justice throughout the world. In the midst of growing geopolitical tensions, armed conflicts and global uncertainty, we commend our honorable ministers, deputy ministers and DIRCO officials for navigating these complex challenges with dedication and resolve. Al Jamaa encourages our government to continue the commendable efforts of advocating for a more active and effective role by the United Nations in maintaining peace, preventing conflicts, and protecting vulnerable populations across the globe. South Africa's foreign policy must continue to be guided by the principles of human rights, justice, peaceful resolution of disputes. I repeat, peaceful resolution of disputes locally and internationally, mutual respect amongst nations, and the promotion of a fair and equitable global order. As a nation that emerged from the oppression of apartheid, South Africa carries a moral responsibility to stand with those who continue to face injustice, occupation, discrimination, and violation of human rights. We therefore commend our country's commitment to peace, dialogue, and international solidarity. At a time of growing global instability and economic uncertainty, we must strengthen strategic partnerships that attract investment, expand trade opportunities, promote tourism, and create jobs for our people. Our diplomatic missions abroad must continue to open new markets for South African businesses and contribute meaningfully. We also call for greater cooperation amongst African nations to address poverty, unemployment, conflict, climate change, and food security. The future of Africa depends on unity, collaboration, and shared prosperity. As members of the Portfolio Committee, we believe effective oversight can only be achieved through regular cooperation, transparency, and meaningful participation. As a committee, we would highly appreciate the consistent presence and attendance of DIRCO officials and leadership at committee meetings. This will enhance accountability, improve communication, and enable the committee to effectively fulfill its constitutional oversight responsibilities.
Honorable member,
A strong partnership
your time
between...
has expired.
Thank you. Peace in the world, prosperity at home. Malibongwe.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Smith.
Honourable Chairperson, the debate on vote 6 for international relations and cooperation is one of critical importance because this ministry lies at the heart of South Africa's reform agenda, overseeing a department which is the outward face of the Government of National Unity's growth plan. This means that DIRCO is both the provision of services to citizens living and travelling abroad, but more crucially, it serves as the brand ambassador for our administration as it engages and interfaces with other nations and states on the international stage. This budget is more than just funding a mandate. It is about crafting a marketable image, altering perceptions, and positioning our country strategically to achieve our national interest. Everything that this budget seeks to accomplish should align with positioning South Africa as a principled, reliable, credible, and consistent international partner while transforming our country into an attractive destination for foreign direct investment. Budget Vote 6 is less about the line items and allocations enclosed in this year's appropriation bill and more about the critical mandates of this department which remain unfunded. One such mandate is the upkeep and maintenance of South Africa's foreign assets, namely our embassy buildings and properties, which house our foreign missions and diplomatic staff. Honourable Chairperson, last year the AG's BRRR report revealed that DIRCO had financially regressed over the 2024-25 financial year. And this regression is partly due to damning findings pertaining to DIRCO's asset management process, particularly the management of state-owned properties abroad for diplomatic use. The decline of South Africa's embassy buildings and international properties is rampant, dire, and highly underreported. Multiple reports have stated that South Africa House in the United Kingdom has no water or heating, with staff often having to work from home. There are further reports of priceless artworks and artifacts having gone missing. And just recently, I was told by a London resident that a local vagrant has taken up residence outside the High Commission's front door. In Mozambique, 5 to 6 staff members have to share one laptop. There are no reliable phone lines, let alone any internet access, and consular services are crippled by a lack of basic embassy support and equipment. How is South Africa supposed to craft an investable image when our embassies resemble the very same broken local municipalities under the ANC? I wasn't aware that a revolutionary budget meant undermining our embassies and embarrassing our nation on the international stage. But not much can be expected from a minister who, over the last 5 oral cluster question sessions, has only attended one virtually. You may be the chief diplomat, Minister Lamola. It is not optional. Honourable Chairperson, while the mandate to maintain South Africa's foreign assets was works, there was no transfer of a budget, nor of any skills to carry it out. Essentially, South Africa's embassy buildings and foreign assets are not only in a state of disrepair, but in a state of financial limbo. We cannot keep debating the fluctuations of Vote 6 until a dedicated budget allocation is made to maintain our embassy buildings. This is not a luxury expense. It is the bread and butter of a functioning foreign service, and one which this department continues to ignore while its ANC ministers dish out money to their friends in Cuba and Venezuela. But Honourable Chairperson, Budget Vote 6 goes deeper than just unfunded mandates. This vote is existential to the entirety of the appropriation bill itself, because it is DIRCO that is responsible for attracting and facilitating foreign direct investment, creating jobs, growing the national fiscus through a sound economic diplomacy agenda. Quite simply, the size of every department's budget is partly decided by the political decisions taken in this ministry. But the minister's economic diplomacy agenda will continue to fail if it is choked by a domestic policy suite which repels the investment necessary to grow our economy. For as long as the ANC insists on promoting broad-based Black economic empowerment, the South African economy will never meaningfully grow and government budgets will continue to shrink. This ministry cannot tell the world that South Africa is open for business.
Honourable Smith, can you please take your seat? I just want to remind all members in the chamber that you cannot drown out the speaker, and that is what you're doing at the moment. If you want to raise a point of order, put up your hand. Don't yell at me. Honorable members, I didn't ask you to yell out. I asked for each and everyone not to drown out the speaker. Honorable Smith, you can continue.
Bazoba Strong. This ministry cannot tell the world that South Africa is open for business, hurdle for potential investors to leap over. In the 22 years since BEE was enacted, our country is more unequal, our growth rate has stagnated, unemployment has risen, and government budgets have shrunk. Only an ANC minister too interested in ideology than common sense can continue to defend a policy that does not work.
Honorable Smith, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order. Honorable member, you raise your point of order. please.
Mgcinislalo, njengoba silanga phakathi akukho ungqongqoshe we-ANC, kunongqongqoshe wombuso. Ngiyathokoza.
Honorable member, there is no point of order, and as I previously ruled, it's not a point of order. Honorable Smith, you can continue. Are the members now done with their mini debate on the floor? Honorable Smith, can you continue, please?
Honorable Chairperson, the ANC may be tired of the DA criticizing BEE, but the South African people are tired of the ANC defending a policy meant to empower them, but which has only left them poorer and more destitute than ever before. Every
Honorable
single
Smith,
budget vote
can you please
debate.
take your seat? There's a point of order.
Thank you, Chair. Ngicela ukubuza ukuthi umphethu angawuthatha umbuzo na othi DA yona ikhathala nge-ANC na.
Honorable Smith, the point of order was the member asked if you would like a question.
I think interpretation was wrong.
Okay.
I said, can the member take a question whether that is DNA,
Honorable
DNA or DA? DA not tired of ANC.
Sorry, honorable
That's the
member,
question.
if you raise your point of order, the correct way is you raise your point of order in asking, will the member take a question? You can't put the question with raise the question.
I was just
So the
trying
honorable
to
member first have to answer before you can raise the question. Honorable Smith, are you prepared to take a question? Honorable Smith said he's not prepared to take the question. Honorable Smith, you may continue.
Every single budget vote debate in this appropriation bill has mentioned financial constraints due to dwindling budgets. It is this ministry which holds the key to addressing this problem, but it requires sanity to trump blind ideology. The minister mentioned African countries taking bold policy steps for growth. When will South Africa do the same? If this ministry takes its mandate seriously, as per the GNU statement of intent, it will push for greater alignment between economic diplomacy and domestic economic policy. Until then, we will keep coming back year after year with less money for government services defended by ANC politicians with more money in their pockets.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Kumbacha.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Ministers, the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, fellow South Africans. Let me also join the nation in congratulating Mapagani Amahle. Yes, thank you. I rise today I rise today in unwavering, unapologetic, and resolute support of Budget Vote 6. This budget is a declaration of South Africa's place in the world. It is a statement of our values, our sovereignty, and our enduring commitment to justice, peace, solidarity, and human dignity in an increasingly unstable global order. We meet at a moment of profound global uncertainty, honorable members. The international system is under immense strain. The ongoing devastation in Palestine, the prolonged conflict in Eastern Europe, the instability across parts of Africa, and the escalating tensions amongst major global powers have exposed the fragility of the current world order. Across the globe, militarization is intensifying and multilateral institutions are being weakened. And precisely at this moment, humanity needs cooperation. I think that's the most important thing we need right now. Yet, as history has shown time and time again, it is the developing world that bears the heaviest burden for crises it did not create. We are seeing rising food insecurity, energy instability, and disrupted supply chains, which are widening inequality and continue to deepen the divide between the global north and global south. But it is precisely in moments such as these that South Africa must stand firm, principled, and courageous. We remain committed to a progressive and independent foreign policy that advances peace, development, justice, and dignity for all humanity. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, this budget vote of 7.227 billion is a strategic investment in South Africa's sovereignty and also the continental leadership in our economic future. Diplomacy in the modern era must be developmental. It must create conditions for investment and industrialization. Our diplomatic missions abroad must become instruments for this to ensue. They must advance beneficiation, and they must strengthen partnerships that provide tangible outcomes for ordinary South Africans. Economic diplomacy is a central pillar of our foreign policy. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation must be properly capacitated to position South Africa and Africa aggressively within a changing global economy. As a portfolio committee, we have emphasized that our missions abroad must do more than fly the flag in our oversight efforts. They must build partnerships that deliver tangible results for our people, and we have observed that the department is making efforts to ensure that this happens. We need these missions for South Africa's growth. These missions are not there to exist merely, but they are here to ensure that South Africa grows to greater heights. Honorable members, let me continue by saying that in the 21st century, diplomacy needs to be transformative. And South Africa will continue to advocate for a just and truly multipolar world. Our solidarity with the people of Palestine and Western Sahara is not selective. It is deeply principled and informed by a painful history of oppression, dispossession, and struggle. The ARF is the African Renaissance and International Cooperation Fund. I repeat, it's the African Renaissance and International Cooperation Fund. At a time where the world is witnessing renewed attempts to isolate and punish nations that refuse to surrender their sovereignty, South Africa remains unwavering in its solidarity with the people of Cuba, a nation that shed blood for Africa's liberation and continues to endure unjust economic pressure for asserting its sovereignty and pursuing an independent developmental growth. Cuba supported us before 1994. And of course, some of you will have amnesia because what we had before 1994 did not affect you. Cuba continues to support South African students and continues to support students currently and even before 1994.
Member, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order. Honorable member, will you please raise your point of order?
I don't know why they're making noise. They don't even hear me what I want to say. Chair, I want to put it on you that is parliamentary incorrect for the chairperson of the portfolio committee to be taking pictures while the speaker is on podium. Can you delete those pictures that he took?
Thank you, honorable member. I want to order, please. Order, please. Order. I want to remind all members that it is against the rules to take any videos of or pictures during the proceedings of a plenary. Will you please do not do that? Honorable member, you can continue.
Cuba played a significant role in regional liberation struggles, and the ARF will continue being a supportive structure. As a democratic nation born from international solidarity, South Africa understands that silence in the face of injustice is itself a betrayal of humanity. Honorable members, the African Continental Free Trade Area presents one of the greatest economic opportunities in the history of our continent. It carries the potential to transform Africa from a fragmented consumer market into a powerful industrial and trading bloc of over 1 billion people. But this vision cannot remain trapped in speeches and declarations. The department must confront the structural barriers that continue to undermine African economic integration through this budget. Honorable members, we welcome the establishment of the coordination mechanism for economic diplomacy, which brings together government, businesses, and labor social partners. This will also ensure that there's economic growth and poverty reduction through various ways in this. My time is running out. South Africa's leadership of SADC in 2026 comes at a critical and defining moment for our region. As chair, South Africa carries both the responsibility and the opportunity to deepen regional cooperation, strengthen African unity, and advance African solutions to African challenges. The department must continue to champion the urgent reform of global governance institutions. And lastly, honorable members and fellow South Africans, approving this budget is an affirmation of South Africa's commitment to peace, development, and Africa's unity and progressive internationalism. It is a declaration that South Africa will continue to engage the world with dignity, independence, moral clarity, and strategic purpose. Let us therefore pass this budget with confidence and conviction. Let us equip DIRCO to defend our sovereignty, strengthen Africa's voice, advance economic diplomacy, and contribute towards building a more just, peaceful, and equitable world order. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members. Order, please. Order, please. Honorable members, order, please. The last speaker is the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair and honorable members. My dates for accounting to Parliament must be agreed in synchrony with my diary and understanding of the nature of my responsibilities. If you see me here regularly and every day, you must call for me to be fired, because my work is in global platforms of engagements and bilateral relations, and also at multilateral platforms. As we speak, honorable members have raised a number of issues that are constructive, and some are not really helpful to take South Africa forward. But nonetheless, we have to engage with all the matters raised. In relations to the assets, we have noted the point made by Honorable Mahumapilo to engage with the PIC, and in the month of June, the department will do so. We will continue to ensure that we use these properties to the maximum, and we continue to infuse technology in our work to enable our embassies to be able to function. And we note the same concerns raised by honorable members in relations to all our properties across the globe, including technological innovation that must enable us to be efficient. And this is a challenge we share with all of you. We also agree that indeed our budget is not enough, but we can live with the little that we have and continue to advocate for the department to be allocated enough to be able to function optimally. We welcome the 2 trillion that the SARS has now been able to receive. It shows that there is efficiency, and in future, the challenges of budget constraints can be resolved for the Department of International Relations and other relevant departments. Honorable, it is not true that the BRICS Bank or the Development Bank of BRICS has not been able to fund projects in our country. We have used amount from the BRICS Bank to resolve challenges in infrastructure, particularly in the network industries, rail, water, and other critical infrastructure projects to the tune of about $7 billion. US dollars. So we are, as a development partner within the BRICS family, we are one of the beneficiaries of this. Honorable members, again, as a country, we are being criticized by some of the GNU partners who are working with us that we are non-aligned. And we have continuously been consistent, Honorable Ren, that our active non-alignment has been very consistent. We've been clear. It has been anchored on the UN Charter, on the Human Rights Outlook, and we have done so across all the platforms in terms of our consistency in this regard. And we will not be deterred from doing so. Honorable Ryan has raised the most arguments that come from the MAGA movement in the US. And he has elevated these concerns of transformation in our country. And everyone in South Africa agrees and understands that BEE is a critical pillar of our transformation. It is in the Constitution of the Republic, and all our transformation efforts are fully anchored on our constitutional democracy. We know that in the US, the MAGA movement is very clear to attack Black people. We know what they stand for. They stand against the human rights of women and the LGBTQI communities. Is driven by a particular ideology. Is Honorable Ryan also aligning the Democratic Alliance against Honorable Smith? Is he aligning the DA with this position? Is he part of this movement that is against human rights, is against progressive outlook in the group? If this is the position, the DA must clearly declare for the people of South Africa to know their alliance with this movement. With regards to the Freedom Front Plus, there is no one else mandated to deal with the realignment of relations with the US other than the South African government. No sectoral group, Freedom Front Plus, Solidarity, or anyone.
Your time has expired.
Can do that. Thank you very much.
Order, please. Order, please. Honorable members. Order, please. Members are reminded that two debates are scheduled simultaneously for 16:45 today. The basic education budget vote number 16 debate will be held in the Good Hope Chamber, while the forestry, fisheries and the environment vote number 32 will take place in committee room M46. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary. Honorable members. Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Chair, GNU is making noise.
Remind you.
GNU is unruly and making noise.
I was still talking when you stood up. This plenary session will now rise. Thank you.